Good. We'll give it just 1 minute. You can settle in with the help of the gong sound. Okay, or just let the sound of the gong draw us back to it and draw us into it more and more, okay? Okay. So is everybody still hearing okay? You can raise a thumb if you are. Good, thank you. So I'm going to continue to assume that everybody has been present at the prior week's teachings, either live or by watching the recordings of the prior Thursdays, okay? And then each week I'll proceed further, just go further in the progression of the practices. And you should all have the handout that has the meditations that we're exploring. So tonight, I want to begin by refreshing our practice of the field of care meditation. And I'm going to ask you to pay particular attention this time in the field of care meditation that we have done before on the releasing phase, which you should all have seen it all on the handout. You notice the last phase is called the releasing phase, where the instruction comes to just relax into the feeling of this sense of loving energy and acceptance and warmth, and let that help your mind to deeply relax, settle, and just be willing to release all of its narrow frameworks of mind. Release its constructs of a narrow sense of self and its world, and just let the mind become completely open like space. So that's the releasing phase of each meditation, including this field of care meditation. So you all know what I'm referring to now, that last phase. And the rest of the meditation, in a way, prepares for that last releasing phase. And we'll go further into where that can point us in the practice tonight. But first, we'll revisit the field of care meditation briefly. So let's begin first again, because our course is really focusing on the kinds of feelings that we're now experiencing within this pandemic crisis. As an example of a way to become, to learn how to become safe with our feelings, to establish a core of compassion and awareness within which our feelings can deeply process themselves in a healing way, and then to be able to come from that core of inner safety and compassion and awareness in becoming present to others in a more healing way. That's the basic principle of our whole course. So revisiting that, let's just kind of, again, drop down from the head into the body, or drop down from the thinking mind into the felt sense of the body, and just become aware from within of any feelings that you're experiencing now related to this pandemic crisis, or any other difficult feelings you may be experiencing now, like feelings of anxiety or fear for yourself or others, or loneliness or grief or frustration. Or even just not fully safe, not fully well even. And just feel what that's like. Okay, now we're going to establish, each of us can establish our field of care. And remember, there are 3 options for that. You can bring to mind a caring moment, a moment of caring connection that makes you happy to recall, as we've done before. Or you can recall a particular person, a benefactor that is uplifting for you to bring to mind because you feel grateful that they've been in your life or your world. Or the third option is to bring to mind a spiritual figure from within your own spiritual tradition, if you are part of one, a spiritual figure that's deeply meaningful to you, who embodies unconditional love and wisdom, like the Buddha or Jesus or any figure. So those are your 3 options. Can everybody choose one of those options that's most connecting for you? And now bring your option to mind. Bring that field of care to mind, your field of care. And just sense for a moment how that feels to bring that to mind. That caring moment, or that benefactor or figure, being within that or with that. Okay, and now just a reminder of the 3 principles of this kind of meditation, field of care. We use the field of care to access loving qualities in which we can then steep. Then we notice any feelings and parts of us that start to draw our attention away from those loving qualities. So accessing loving qualities, noticing any feelings or parts of us that draw our attention away from them. And then thirdly, including those feelings and parts of us in the caring space of those qualities, while continuing to steepen them, accept them deeply into our being. And in this practice also, please pay special attention to the final releasing phase of the meditation, when we're instructed to just relax and let go of narrow mental constructs of self and world, and just relax into the background of our awareness, a pervasive openness and simplicity of awareness. That's what we'll do now. Okay, so let's start with abdominal breathing. You can just breathe in your normal rhythm, but breathing into the abdomen so you feel your abdomen expand with each inhale. And settling, so dropping down from the head, settling into the feeling of the body, and especially just feeling the abdomen expand and contract with each breath. And just relaxing into it, the feeling of your abdomen, gently expanding and contracting breath by breath. And now please bring to mind your field of care, a caring moment, or a benefactor or spiritual figure. And please experience that as present to you now, not just a memory or an abstraction, but as present here with you now, happening now. That caring moment is now, or that benefactor or figure is here with you now. And you are being seen in your deep worth and dignity beyond judgments, with deep care and compassion. And just relax into the felt sense of that. Just steeping in its loving energy, feeling its tender qualities, and letting them infuse your whole being. Just accept this loving energy and its qualities into your whole body and mind, every cell of your body, and every layer of feeling and emotion. As if every part of you is loved in its very being. Every part of you loved in its very being. Just accepting it. And let any feelings related to this pandemic crisis also be here. Any feeling of anxiety or loneliness or grief or frustration or whatever. Let all such feelings also be held in the spacious warmth and acceptance of these loving qualities. Fully allowing the feelings to be here in this space of compassion, letting them settle in their own way. And now just relax deeply into this felt sense of loving energy and acceptance and warmth. And let that help your heart and mind to just trust and relax and deeply settle. And let the mind release all of its frameworks, its narrow constructs of self and world. And just let the heart and mind become completely open like space. Let the mind just become completely open like space. Just gently falling completely open. And let patterns of experience that arise just unwind and release within this utter openness of awareness. By just letting everything be. Just letting everything be. Thank you. That was impressive. One of you, I noticed just as I said, just let everything be. For one of you, a cat jumped right on your shoulder. And you just let it. So good for you. That was impressive. I guess the cat was following the instruction too. Just letting, he had to just be a cat. Or she. So notice that last phase, that releasing phase of the meditation, of just settling, in a sense, instruction for helping the mind to learn to settle into the natural openness in the background of our awareness and begin to just settle upon that or into that natural openness in the background that we may not have noticed before. And I'll say more about that. So usually, many of us lead quite competitive, very driven lives. We have to get up in the morning and really get going and get a lot together. And that lends itself to a sense of contractedness, kind of caught up in a narrow, contracted sense of ourself. Do you sort of follow what I'm saying? A sense of contractedness that can get tighter and tighter. And that sense of contractedness, I think, for many of us, has become intensified within this pandemic crisis. Have you felt that? Some of you, the feeling even more caught up and contracted within this pandemic, sensing also the difficulties that so many around us are going through. So that kind of the increasing contractedness that we are kind of together caught up in more and more, that's also contagious. And that contractedness around a narrow sense of self and a kind of claustrophobic sense of our world, if that's making any sense to you. Kind of narrow frameworks of mind promotes a kind of a tightness in the flow of our emotional energies and a tightness in our body. So are you sort of following? Is that sort of making sense what I'm saying? And it can be helpful to learn ways to physically uncontract, physically open up, ways to make space, as it were, as in yoga practices, yoga postures for opening the chest and opening the shoulders, ways of opening the back and the hips. Maybe some of you are familiar with that from yoga practice. Ways of making space. And that can be extremely helpful. And in times like this too. Now, in the kind of practices that I'm teaching here for this course, which is called Sustainable Compassion Training, like it says in your handout, in these practices of awareness that are adapted especially from Tibetan Buddhism, besides those yogic ways of making space, we can learn to access a space that is already here, not made. So we're not making a space. We're learning to access a space that's already here that we may not have noticed. A space available in the background of our experience. A space that is also in and through all of our experience. Okay, you sort of following? I just made a contrast between making space, as in yogic postures, and accessing a space in the background of our awareness, or a space that we can experience as in and through all of our experiences. A space that's already here that we do not make. Is that contrast clear? I'll say more about that. So in the releasing phase of the meditations, like the one we just did, field of care meditation, also the compassionate presence to feelings meditation we did last week, there's a releasing phase to all of these meditations in sustainable compassion training. And in the releasing phase, we let the experience of the loving qualities, like in the field of care meditation, the sense of deep acceptance and allowing and care and inner safety and warmth and well-being, let's say, those kinds of loving qualities. We let those loving qualities help the mind feel safe enough to relax its grip on our contracted frameworks of ourself and our world. So the mind can begin to deeply relax and unwind and settle into the spacious ground of those loving qualities. Settle into the spacious ground of those loving qualities, which is a pervasive openness and clarity and simplicity of awareness that's beyond all narrow frameworks of mind. So in the releasing phase of these meditations, like the one we just did in field of care meditation, in the releasing phase, the instruction of that releasing phase is helping us learn how to settle back into that basic openness or spaciousness, clarity, and simplicity of awareness that is always available in the background of our experience. A basic spaciousness, clarity, and simplicity that is always available in the background of our experience. Are you following? So there has always been a background of utter spaciousness or openness behind all that we are experiencing. Although generally it has not been conscious to us most of the time. Like, can you remember sometime maybe after you've gone on a hike or a long walk, and then you just kind of are tired out physically, and you just sit down on a hillside and you just gaze out upon the sky? Can you remember a time like that? Has anyone ever gone outside? Have we forgotten what that's like? Hunkering down in our little rooms? Can you remember that? Anyone? So there you are, physically kind of really tired out from a good long walk, and you sit there on the hillside, maybe at sunset, and just gaze out upon the sky or just overlooking the ocean. Try to remember that. And there's a sense of utter openness, simplicity, peace, clarity that dawns on you. Try to remember that kind of moment on the hillside, gazing into the sky or gazing over the ocean. A pervasive quality of awareness and utter openness that was always available in the background of our experience, but is now brought forward by the spaciousness and clarity of the vast sky. Are you following me? That's why many of us go to the beach. That's why we go outside. That expanse of utter openness, simplicity, and clarity of the sky brings out that expanse of utter openness, simplicity, pure cognizance from the background of our experience, brings it forward. So now we are experiencing it. We're no longer ignoring it or not noticing that background of utter openness and pure cognizance. You following what I'm saying? So most of the time we're ignoring it, we're not noticing it, but sometimes we have all experienced it. This background of utter spaciousness and clarity and simplicity. When that background of openness and clarity is brought forward in a moment like that, sitting on the hillside or overlooking the ocean, that is a glimpse of what is called shamatha. Shamatha is a Sanskrit word, which is often translated calm abiding. The calm abiding of mind, here on spaciousness and clarity. So that moment on the hillside, I'm trying to appeal to your memory, so really please try to recall this. That moment when you felt deeply at peace, open, everything just kind of settled. Maybe a feeling of profound okayness. For the moment, you are beyond your contracted, narrow habit of endlessly worrying. For a moment, a kind of a pervasive openness and peace dawns on you on that hillside, on that beach. I think that's why we go there. That's what I'm calling a glimpse of shamatha here, meaning calm abiding of mind on spaciousness and clarity. It's a moment of access to the pervasive spaciousness and clarity available, always available in the background of our awareness. But by and large, we have not known how to regularly access it. So we feel like we have to go to Bermuda or somewhere special. So the next meditation that I'm going to lead is a meditation called letting be. Letting be in the body, in our experience of the breath, and in the mind. And those three letting be's of body, breath, and mind can help us settle even more directly and fully into that background of pervasive openness and clarity and peace and simplicity. A background of awareness beyond clinging, prior to all the clinging and reacting. A background that we can learn how to settle into, learn how to abide in, and learn from there how to come from there. into our relationship and work with others. So shall I do that? Let's maybe loosen up just a little bit in our seats before I lead the next meditation. Just loosening up a little right where we are, because I'll lead it in just a moment. Okay. Okay, we'll do this in a brief way. So just settle into our seat, can drop down again from the head, from the thinking mind into the feeling of the body as a whole. Just relaxing into the body. Let your breath just settle into its own natural rhythm. But inhaling into the abdomen, so you feel the abdomen expand and contract with each breath. So the feeling of the abdomen draws you into it more and more with each breath, the expanding and contracting feeling. So you're letting the feeling of the abdomen expanding and contracting just draw you into it more and more. You're not mainly in your head right now. The abdomen is drawing you into it, the feeling of it. Just relaxing into that if you can. That feeling. And now, while still breathing from the abdomen, in a relaxed way, just let your attention settle into the feeling of the body as a whole. And feeling the body as a whole, notice any feeling of tightness or holding on within the body. And just let that relax if you can. Letting all the bodily feelings just settle in their own way. Deeply let be into the body. So you're letting the body draw you into oneness with it. As if letting the body do the knowing. Or as if letting the body meditate you. And when the mind wanders, let the grounded feeling of the body, like a magnet, just draw you back into it. And now, while still breathing from the abdomen, notice any sense of holding on to the breathing process anywhere. And just let that relax. And deeply let be into the bodily feeling of the breath. Letting the feeling of the breath draw you into oneness with it. As if letting the breath do the knowing. Or as if letting the breath meditate you. And when the mind wanders, let the feeling of the breath, like a magnet, just draw you back into the breath. And now bring your attention to the mind and notice any sense of grasping to the thinking process or to any mental image or mental construct. Notice any holding on to a sense of self or a thought or a framework of mind. And let that feeling of holding on just relax deep within. So give the heart and mind permission to release its grip into total openness. Letting the mind just settle back into the natural openness that is already here. Beyond reference points, like space. And let this total spaciousness of awareness draw you into oneness with it. Just settle back into the natural openness that's already here, like space. And let this total spaciousness of awareness draw you into oneness with it. Letting this unity of utter openness and awareness do the knowing or the meditating. Let this unity of utter openness and awareness do the knowing or the meditating. And let any patterns of thought or feeling that arise just unwind and release within this pervasive space of deep allowing by just letting everything be. Letting this total openness and awareness do the meditation. And let everything be. Good, thank you. So that meditation is called the 3 letting bees, letting be of body and breath and mind. And in your handout for the course, that I think that's meditation 5. Does that seem right? Meditation 5, I think. So the first 2 letting bees of body and breath draw on the natural power of the body and breath to help us relax and settle and be drawn naturally into increasing unity with our bodily experience. And the third letting be of mind then builds on that and helps the mind relax and release further into the basic openness and clarity and peace and simplicity in the background of our awareness. So the third letting be helps the mind to settle into that spacious, cognizant background of our experience, which is always there, has always been there, but which mostly we have not noticed or known how to access more regularly or fully. So this third letting be of mind enters us into a meditative state or it can enter us into a meditative state called calm abiding without support. Denme shine, so shamatha without support. So in shamatha without support, guided in this particular form, we settle back into the pervasive openness and clarity and simplicity in the background of our awareness. So we're not focusing on a particular object like a statue. This is for cultivating states of awareness or states of deep calm abiding. We are not focusing on a particular object like a statue or a candle flame. Those are traditional objects for cultivating attention and calm abiding. Or we're not focusing on the sound of a gong, but rather in the letting be of mind, we're coming to rest on the basic openness and pure cognizance, the pure knowing quality that's always present in the background of our experience, no matter what we are aware of in the foreground. That background of openness and pure cognizance is inherently stable. Even though our sense perceptions in the foreground may be shifting and changing. Maybe you're looking out into a park or a yard, and the wind is blowing and the branches of the trees are blowing and the leaves are shivering in the wind. And all that is shifting, changing perceptions in the foreground of your awareness. But the background of utter openness and pure cognizance is not changing, actually. It's a little bit like, have any of you ever gone to a movie theater and seen a movie? Some of you have. And if you turn around, have you ever done this? I like to do this at movie theaters. If nothing else, then this is something fun to do. You turn around and you look at the projector light that's projecting the illumination that on the screen becomes the illuminated images that you're watching on the screen for the movie, right? If you turn around and you look at the projected illumination as it's coming out of the projector, it's just it's like homogeneous light, which then becomes all those projected images on the screen. But before it becomes that, it's actually a kind of a stable flow of light. What we're doing in learning, when we're learning how the mind can come to rest on or in the basic openness and pure cognizance in the background of our experience, we're doing something similar to what I just described in the movie theater. We're settling back into the light of cognizance before it takes shape in the shifting forms that we're seeing projected before us. We're settling back, in a sense, into the illumination coming from the projector before it projects into shifting, changing forms on the screen. And that, as we settle back into that, it's actually quite stable. That background of utter openness and pure cognizance. So we can settle back into that and also be conscious of all the shifting, changing things going on before us. But we're settled into a kind of a stable background. Are you following? That's the direction of training in shamatha without support. It's quite remarkable. That background of basic openness and simplicity and cognizance was always here, but I hadn't noticed it until I was taught how to notice it by settling into it. So in shamatha without support, which is the practice we were just doing in the letting be of mind, the mind learns to settle into the stability of that cognizant background, that naturally wide open, radiant cognizant background. So this kind of practice, settling into and learning to abide in the backdrop or the background of cognizance and openness, the background of our experience, provides further access to many positive qualities of awareness that empower our well-being and our awakening to more and more qualities from our underlying awareness, and also empower our relationships and work with others. So qualities that can emerge more and more from this deep settling into this background of pure cognizance and openness are qualities of steadiness of mind, stability of attention, fuller presence, deeply settled. You're not hiding from the world. You're just settled back while in the world. It's stable, it's settled, it's grounded, inner peace, equanimity. Other qualities that come with this kind of shamatha are ease, increasing ease with your experience, with yourself, with others, a natural ease, natural joy, and an inner readiness to share, to care, and to love, because you've settled back into a ground of stability, ready to care. You're beyond the field of brittle, self-clinging reaction. You've settled back beyond that field. So you're more in touch with underlying capacities of warmth, care, connection, resonance, capacity to share, to care, to love, to empathize. You're settled back. There's more freedom there, more stability there. That's shamatha without support. It's really something. So this letting be meditation, which is part of our training here, by helping our mind settle into deepening states of shamatha or calm abiding in that way, this letting be meditation, especially the letting be of mind aspect, much further informs the releasing phase of every other meditation, what the releasing phase actually means, what it means to actually follow the instruction of the releasing phase, to just relax, trust more in the depth of your awareness, so your mind feels safe enough to just release all of its frameworks of mind, all of its narrow constructs that the mind tends to be gripping onto, a narrow sense of self ready to react. The mind can begin with the loving energies and qualities that are developed in the other meditations. The mind can begin to feel safe enough, feel that those loving qualities, that the source of those loving qualities, which are coming from the depth of our own awareness, that source in the depth of our awareness could be safe enough, that the mind could begin to feel safe enough to just relax its grip on itself and settle more into its depth. Just relax into the natural openness and pure cognizance that's already here, like space, just pervasive, simple openness and pure cognizance, already endowed with capacities of warmth, care, ready to love. So that's the three letting be's, the letting be of mind, releasing into calm abiding without support in that way. Now, I have to say at this point that things can also go even deeper than that. with the support of teachers and practice community that practice deeply in this direction, a practitioner may also go beyond shamatha, as I've been describing it. What I mean by that is that shamatha, even this practice of shamatha without support, where we just settle into this always already available background of utter openness and pure cognizance. But that shamatha, that form of calm abiding, still retains a subtle framework of duality. That is a sense of someone meditating on something, someone resting or settling upon something, that openness and cognizance. And it involves just a little bit of effort to continue to abide in that pure cognizance and openness of awareness. That's shamatha, or calm abiding. So it retains a subtle degree of duality, a sense of someone relating to something, and a little bit of effort. With further deepening of practice, which needs to be supported by teaching and by support of practice community that practices in this kind of depth, one's mind can reach a point that it could open into an even much more fully non-dual glimpse of its deep nature, Buddha nature, we'd say, which is experienced as a total unity of emptiness or space and clarity and compassionate capacity. And this unity of emptiness and clarity and compassionate capacity is totally beyond all frames of reference, totally beyond all frameworks or constructs of duality. There is no sense of anyone meditating on anything. It completely transcends that. It is beyond all effort. It is beyond all doing. This glimpse of the deep nature of mind. So this unity of space or emptiness and pure cognizance is totally unimpeded. It is self-cognizant, and it is self-manifesting. It is self-meditating, as it were. And for that reason, it is called non-meditation, because there's no sense of anyone trying to meditate on anything. It completely transcends all such frameworks or constructs of mind. Self-manifesting, I would call it self-meditating, as it were. So if this glimpse of the deep nature of mind in its emptiness and pure clarity occurs, then the meditation instruction at the end of each meditation to just let everything be. You remember that when the instruction came, just let everything be. Remember that? And that becomes a reminder to let this natural unity of space and clarity just sustain itself. Don't try to do anything. It's beyond trying to do anything. Just trust it. Let it do the knowing. So I mention this because there may be some people in this course who may be familiar with that kind of depth of practice into the deep nature of mind. And so they can let the releasing phase of each meditation and also this letting be meditation can help you reconnect with that depth of practice if you are already familiar with it. So that's why I had to mention it, right? I'm trying to be present to the whole room here. So there's quite a diversity of different individuals in this room, as it were. This virtual room, or I should say room in quotes. So just whatever background people are coming from, whatever kind of practice they're doing, whatever kind of practice experience they have, I'm trying to speak to everyone in the room, actually. And I think what I just went over could actually relate to any individual in the room. Some part of what I just brought up can relate to anyone in the room, especially if you've ever been outside on a hillside or overlooking the ocean, if anyone's ever done that. Maybe one or two of you have. That was a joke. Okay, so I think that's enough for tonight. We've done our hour, so good work. It's nice to be with you all. If you have any questions you want me to respond to or something to share from this practice we did, then you know how to submit them on the email address for that is on the welcome letter you got from the Bowery Center. So great. Have a nice day, and I look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow night as well for Q&A and meditation. Bye-bye.